Hi everyone, I'm Corey. Thanks for tuning into my program. Today we're going to talk about forging human connections in the digital age. Have you ever experienced the feeling that people today are more plugged into our machines and devices than we are to each other? Perhaps you even recognize the irony that technology which was created to help us connect actually leaves many of us feeling disconnected. If you ever feel this way, you are not alone. But I don't think the technology changes human communication on a fundamental level, and I believe we can actually use our gadgets and gizmos to build deeper, more meaningful relationships. How do we get there? Let's start with a refresher on the basics. Now, some of the things I'll talk about today will sound like simple common sense, and a lot of it is, but the tricky reality about common sense is this: the simplest truths are often the hardest to follow. So let's start with a brief look at how we spend our time, specifically how we spend our time online and with other people. A study from the U.S. National Bureau of Economic Research, conducted in 2012, showed a trend that each additional minute we spend socializing online amounts to 0.25 minutes less socializing offline. In other words, if we spend 1 hour on social media, we trade 15 minutes of time we would otherwise spend socializing face-to-face. Another study reported in the New York Times just this month revealed that most people ages 18 to 49 around the world spend about 3 to 3.8 hours per day on social media alone. Now, if you add that together with all the other things we do online, things like emails, reading the news, watching videos, shopping, research for work perhaps, we're trading a lot of time, upwards of 5 hours a day, in some countries more, versus 1.25 hours socializing face-to-face. Another way to look at it is to say that we spend, on average, 5 times as much time looking at and communicating through computers, tablets, and mobiles than we do communicating with human beings in the old-fashioned organic sense. It shouldn't be surprising, then, that in some countries like the U.S., up to 39% of people report feeling less connected with other humans than they used to. The assumption is that the technology degrades the quality of our communication, and thus our connectedness, but I don't think that's true. There's no doubt that the tools of communication change constantly, and they change radically. Do you remember the last time you mailed a letter? If I wanted to send a birthday card to my best friend Sarah, who lives in Chicago, I would need to plan as much as a month in advance. First, I'd have to go get a card and write a note, find an envelope, put the address on it, find a stamp. Actually, several stamps, because it's traveling from the Philippines, where I live, all the way back to the heartland of the United States. I'd have to carry it to a mailbox, wait for a postal officer to pick it up. The letter would then travel by truck to either a ship or a plane, cross the Pacific Ocean, transfer to another plane, then another truck, and after 20 to 45 days, she would finally receive my card. Then computers and the internet came along, and suddenly we had an instantaneous way to send a letter electronically. But of course, they would only receive it when they were seated at their computer. Today we have mobiles. Little mini computers we keep in our pockets and purses, and we scarcely put them down. Now, today, if you're in London and you need to reach a client in Dubai immediately, you can send them an email, give them a call, Skype or FaceTime with them, send an SMS, a message on LinkedIn, or any one of dozens of ways to reach someone, all of which can be accomplished on your mobile phone. So we have all this technology, so many different ways to reach and connect with one another, so many dynamic ways to interact. Do any of these tools change the core functions of human communication? Think about how communication works between two people. We know, based on decades of research, when two people are communicating face-to-face, 55% of that communication is body language. That's things like our posture, eye contact, what we do with our shoulders, whether or not you're smiling. Have you ever been talking to someone and realized this person is lying to me? You couldn't say exactly the reason why, you knew why they were lying. Maybe you didn't even know what the real story was supposed to be, but you were 100% positive this person is not being truthful with me. The reason you could tell is because their body gave them away. When we talk to another person, we immediately pick up on whether or not their face and their body language matches the words that they're saying. The bigger the mismatch, the more obvious it is. We get similar information from auditory cues, which make up 38% of our face-to-face communications. This is referring to things like tone of voice, the rate, meaning how fast you speak, volume, how loudly you speak, inflection, that kind of thing. Have you ever heard someone speaking a language you didn't know, but you could tell from how they were speaking if they were happy, angry, excited, or something else? One of the reasons you could tell was by interpreting their auditory cues. Only 7% of our face-to-face communication is made up of the actual words we speak. Now think about that. We put a lot of mental energy into choosing our words. What we don't realize is that our bodies and our voices give away our true intent all the time. You can hear it immediately in someone's voice if you ask, "How are you?" and they reply, "Oh, I'm fine." Or if you tell a joke and someone says, "Yeah, that's really funny," in an angry tone, or they don't laugh or smile, you can easily conclude they probably didn't like the joke. Body language and auditory cues are both forms of nonverbal communication. The simplest way to understand it is this. Verbal communication is made up of the words that you choose. The nonverbal communication tells us exactly what those words mean. That means 93% of our meaning is communicated nonverbally. With all this information to take in, we clearly have a lot of advantages talking face-to-face. But when we have to communicate through a technology, especially in the case of static communications like email, messenger, and SMS, we are left with just one piece of the pie, your words. So then, what happens when we communicate with technology? I'll use the term digital communication here to mean everything that incorporates communicating through a device, be that email, SMS, VoIP calls, video conferencing, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, basically anything other than face-to-face communication done with a technology. So what happens with digital communication? A lot of it is one-dimensional or even static. As in, if I send you an email, that message is captured and it sits in your inbox until you open it, whether that's 5 minutes or 5 months later. If you think about it, that's one reason emails get us in trouble. We may be in one frame of mind when we write the message, but a completely different frame of mind and have a whole new understanding of the situation by the time the reader gets to the message. So there is a big danger lurking in the static communications like emails. When I say one-dimensional communications, I'm referring to things like messenger or chat, or even responding to one another's posts on a social media platform. Those are more dialogue-based than a one-sided narrative. But it is still one-dimensional in the sense that you are literally just getting one thing from me, my words. Whatever words I selected to express myself in this medium, that's what you have to work with. And many times, it's not enough. When I read your email or your chat, I need to be able to determine if you are concerned, angry, excited, are you being sarcastic, or maybe all of those things at once. And to reach this conclusion, I will have to use certain context for clues. When you find yourself in this situation, your brain performs a very rapid calculus. What have my past interactions with this individual been like? Do they often seem upset when they really aren't? Is this the way they would normally speak to me? What's going on with this individual right now? Are they frustrated about something that isn't working properly? Are they having issues in their personal life? Have they been sick? Are they tired? Did they just return from vacation? Now, what if you don't know? If you've never spoken to this person before, or you haven't interacted with them enough to gather this kind of context, our tendency is to simply fill in the gaps with our own assumptions. Even worse, whatever we're feeling at that moment, especially if it's negative, we tend to project onto what this person is saying to us. So if you're having a really terrible day or you aren't feeling well, you're more likely to filter that person's communication through your own mood. Unless you make a conscious choice to do otherwise. Whenever we're communicating with a technology, we have to heighten our empathy, heighten our self-awareness, keep our own emotions, motivations, and opinions in check, and really focus on what the other person is trying to communicate to us. I get it. Look, sometimes it feels like you're a robot. You have a gut-level reaction to something that someone has told you, and it feels like you couldn't help it if you tried. The truth is that this is against our nature. We are biologically programmed to be self-interested and to put our own needs first. That's how we survive. But when it comes to human relationships on a day-to-day basis, if we want to be successful, we have to choose a different path. That means paying close attention to the way you send messages, as well as how you receive and interpret messages from other people. If you find that you're having constant disagreements with another individual, and these disagreements are bigger, stronger, and uglier when you trade emails, the first thing you need to do is step back and look at the kind of messages you're sending, how you are filtering and interpreting the messages they send you. And on that note, I'm going to turn our attention to the timeless wisdom of this gentleman. This is Dale Carnegie, a famous American career coach and author of many books. His work is the foundation of the Dale Carnegie Institute, which grew out of a movement that took off with his most famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Many people who are new to his work are surprised to learn that How to Win Friends was first published in 1936. Think back on your history for a moment, and you'll recall that in 1936 the world was deep in the throes of the Great Depression. It may have started in the U.S., but the Great Depression was a global event. The worldwide unemployment rate was estimated to be well over 20%. Millions were without work, homeless, and starving. Needless to say, it was a very dark time, and not a time when people had a lot of hope or joy. And then, out of that darkness came this little book. Carnegie's book took off like a wildfire because he carried in it a message of hope, empowerment, and empathy. He helped people understand how to encourage one another and lift each other up. And he told them, you have the power to get control of your destiny again by building relationships with other people in small, meaningful, and consistent ways. 78 years after its original publication, How to Win Friends has sold millions of copies worldwide and has been published in nearly every known written language. His message became a global movement, and it continues to inspire people today. Now, are his lessons still meaningful in the digital age? In his book, Carnegie outlines 6 simple principles to get people to like you. This timeless wisdom can be applied whether you're selling a service, helping a customer solve a problem, working with a colleague on a special project, or any other time people come together to get something accomplished. It's easy to see, looking over this list, how you would apply his advice in a face-to-face communication. But what about digital communications? Do the concepts still work? We do have some special challenges when it comes to digital communications. First, like we outlined in the beginning, we trade offline socializing for online socializing. That means we get less practice interpreting the nuances of meaning and behavior. And you would think that all that time we spend dealing with people in digital communication would wear us out and would make us less likely to seek deep, meaningful connections. But that is an inherent human need, and we crave connectivity as much as we ever have. Think about this in terms of what it means to be a customer. Logically, you would think that purchasing from an online retailer like Amazon means that I would accept a less personal service than I would get by going into a store and purchasing the same item. But that hasn't actually been our experience. Let's say you're working on some renovations or repairs in your house, so you go to the hardware store to buy painting supplies. If you've been in this store before, you know where the paintbrushes are located, you want to go in, get what you need, pay for it, and leave as quickly as possible. But if you aren't sure yet what you want to buy, you may want help locating something, or maybe you just want the freedom to look around uninterrupted. Either way, you have a need and you expect the proprietor to meet that need. If you need help, you expect to be able to find someone who can help you quickly, and for that person to be knowledgeable, friendly, and helpful. If you want to be left alone, you expect the store to be laid out in such a way that you can find what you're looking for. Once you do have what you need, you want to pay and leave without any troubles or hassles. Shopping online is fundamentally no different. I expect to either know how to find what I'm looking for on the website or to be able to locate it easily. If I need help making a decision, I want access to reviews and customer feedback, even live help if I need it. And when I'm ready to make a purchase, I want to pay quickly and be on my way. The technology doesn't change what we need from this exchange, it only changes how we get it. In short, Maslow got it right. Human needs are driven by the same underlying concerns, whether they're trying to survive after getting lost in the wilderness or trying to survive their workday. Maslow published his paper Theory on Human Motivation in 1943. His findings have informed everything we know about modern psychology, and his theory has held true for more than 70 years. We could spend a great deal of time talking about this theory, but that's another discussion for another time. If you would like to study this on your own, I certainly encourage you to do so, as it will help you understand what is driving your own behavior or someone else's behavior. The chart you see here is called Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, and you can find it published many places online for free. The takeaway here is this. If you understand what motivates people to act in a certain way, you can adjust your decisions, your words, your body language, and other factors to help people achieve what they want. When you help people achieve their goals, a marvelous thing happens. They return the favor. Thinking about those 6 ways to make people like you from How to Win Friends, How does Carnegie's advice stack up in 2014, given all the new means and methods we have for communicating with one another? It really hasn't changed, and I'll demonstrate how. There is an updated edition to his classic book entitled, not surprisingly, How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age. The core advice is unchanged, but we are framing it with slightly different words. Let's see how they compare. In 1936, Carnegie talked about the importance of becoming genuinely interested in other people. Things are no different today. The only difference is that we have more ways to learn about people's interests and more ways to indulge and talk about our own. This one is my favorite. It turns out that a nice smile will melt tension and build trust just as much today as it did in 1936. But how do you communicate a smile digitally? We'll talk about that in a moment. Reign with names, or as Carnegie said in 1936, remember that a person's name is to them the sweetest sound in the world. We don't really think of it that way. If you were asked to name your favorite sounds, you might say your child's laughter, or a favorite song, or the sound of waves lapping on the beach. But it's true that names matter, and we'll discuss that shortly. Listening is just as important today. In fact, it's more important. The more distracted and self-focused we are, the harder it is to listen. Today, the challenge is not just to listen, but to listen in every way, and to listen intently. Discuss what matters to them. Again, we have access to a lot of information today that wasn't readily available in Carnegie's time. We can go back and check someone's Twitter feed or a LinkedIn discussion if we want to remember a particular thing that they said. And finally, make the other person feel important, leaving them a little better off than when you found them. It's clear that the fundamentals of building relationships are unchanged in modern life, so let's talk about these principles in 2014 terms. We have a lot of new ways to discover and explore people's interests because of content they share. For example, if you were to follow me on Instagram, you would see that 1. I have a lot of animals, 2. I live in the Philippines, and 3. I rather enjoy traveling. While it's easy to discover these things without talking to me directly, that isn't the same thing as taking an interest. Taking an interest means engaging with the person, talking with them, asking them. This is how rapport is built. If you're talking with a customer or a client, you can inquire about their family, inquire about their hobbies, ask them to explain about causes that they care about. This opens up a door for people to share something important in their lives. If you're talking with someone of a different culture, learn something about where they came from. Ask questions about their culture, the city they live in, or their language. When I meet someone new, especially from a different culture, I ask them to tell me what their hometown is like. I'll say, if I came to visit your city, what is something I would have to see before I left? I also ask people how to say good morning, please, and thank you in their language. These are very small gestures that nearly always resonate and show the other person you're interested in who they are. You can also join groups, forums, read blogs from industry experts to learn new things, participate in conversations, and always welcome differing opinions with respect. You may not realize it, but your mood definitely affects the way that you communicate. And if you are in a particularly bad mood, hey, it happens to all of us, you're better off taking a break from all the digital communication platforms we have until you've cooled off. That's the easiest way to end up saying something you don't mean. If you're speaking on the phone, Skype, or video conferencing, smile while you're talking. Even if that person can't see you, they'll hear it in your voice. But how do you send a digital smile? Well, obviously you can make use of smileys or emojis, but you can also use words that convey a smile. Starting an email or an SMS with, "Good morning, Carlos," as opposed to just, "Hey," or "Carlos," both of which sound more abrupt and less friendly. Whatever you say or write, cloak your words in kindness, even if the other person does not reciprocate. As strange as it sounds, you can be connected to a client on LinkedIn, email back and forth with them many times, subscribe to their blog, follow them on Twitter, friend them on Facebook, trade photos on Instagram, and still get their name wrong. It happens all the time. And with all the tools at our disposal today, it is even more disheartening when someone gets your name wrong. More of us are conducting business with people all over the world from unfamiliar cultures. The simple rule is this: if you're not 100% positive that the person you're addressing is a Mr., a Miss, or a Mrs., you're better off typing, "Hi Tracy," or "Good morning Tracy," than mistakenly calling Mr. Smith a Mrs. Take advantage of all of our digital connections and take care to spell and say their name correctly. Think about how it makes you feel when someone gets your name right. This is what Carnegie meant when he said that your name is the sweetest sound in the world to your ears. Your name is special. It was selected just for you. When someone gets your name right, you feel an instant connection with that person. When they get your name wrong, you feel instantly repulsed. That is a gut-level reaction. For this reason, never use a nickname or a shortened version of someone's name unless they have introduced themselves to you that way. In some cultures, it's very common to have nicknames or use abbreviations, but in other cultures, it's considered very rude for anyone other than a family member or a close friend to use that nickname. You're better off sticking to the name with which they introduce themselves in all communications, voice or written. I said it earlier, the hardest part about listening is turning off the noise in your own head. With modern life, we have more noise than ever getting in the way. Make a conscious choice to push what you want to say out of your mind until the other person has finished speaking. Believe it or not, this applies to written communication just as much as verbal. We've become so saturated with written content that we've developed the collective habit of skimming. If you're not familiar with the term skimming, the word skim developed from an old German word schaum, which meant to throw a flat stone across the surface of the water. In America, we call that skipping stones. Now, if you throw the stone correctly, it bounces across the surface of the water until it sinks. In the context of reading, it means you quickly glance over a large block of text just to try to get the main ideas. Have you ever received a long email from someone, read over it very quickly, and responded with a question, only to learn that they had already provided the information you're requesting in the original message? Yep, you were skimming. Skimming is the reader equivalent of interrupting someone while they're speaking. When you interrupt a speaker, it means that you're thinking about what you want to say and not really hearing their words. If you want to build influence and meaningful relationships with people, practice listening. Again, with so many tools at our disposal, it's easier than ever to discover what matters to someone else. In every conversation, every interaction, there is a negotiation. Every interaction has an objective. There is something that you both want when you talk with another person. The key to building rapport and influence is to frame the discussion in terms of what the other person wants. At the end of a long day, I'll ask my husband, "What would you like for dinner?" if I don't have anything specific in mind. And he will invariably reply, "Well, whatever's easiest to make," or "We can just have leftovers." He knows that I'm tired, and he would rather that I just rest and do things that I enjoy doing, rather than spending a lot of time making a meal. But on the other hand, I love to cook, and I enjoy making his favorite dishes. So sometimes I'll ask him, "Would you rather have enchiladas or chicken cordon bleu for dinner?" I know that both of these are things he loves to eat, so I'm framing the question in terms of what he would like, a tasty evening meal. This can be easier with someone you know well, like a spouse or a friend or even your boss, but if you're talking with a customer, it may be the first time you've spoken with them. Now you have to go on a voyage of discovery to learn what this person needs, and the easiest place to start? Ask them. Finally, you want to make every effort to leave others a little better off than they were at the beginning of your interaction. Anthony Robbins is a famous author and motivational speaker. He's also a graduate of the Dale Carnegie Institute. He writes, "The real key to winning friends and influencing people today is moving relationships from manipulative to meaningful. The only way you do that is by constantly adding meaning and value." Every interaction is an opportunity to find little ways to make their lives easier or their experience smoother. Ask yourself, how can I make this person's life easier today? How can I show them kindness and compassion? What do they need or want from this exchange? Or even better, how can I surprise or delight them? In essence, you discover what interests them. You earn their trust by smiling, remembering their name, and listening to what they need. You talk in terms of what they're interested in or what they want, and then you find little ways to deliver what they need with a little bit more than they expected. These simple keys will build lasting, meaningful relationships on every level, in every aspect of your life. Stick to the principles that help you connect with people on a human level, and the technology we have at our disposal today will be a powerful tool rather than a barrier. If you've never read Carnegie's original work, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I highly recommend it. It truly is a timeless book. If you have read it, it's worth picking up this new edition. You can get it on any tablet or mobile device, and it's available in many bookstores. I really appreciate you tuning in for this program. I hope it was insightful and gave you some tools to move forward with. If you'd like to connect with me and dialogue further, I would be thrilled to hear from you. You can reach me on any of these methods I've outlined below. Thanks again for watching. Bye, everyone!